Hello everybody. Welcome to this session titled Making Data Literacy Happen. We're really happy to have you here and really amazed to have this chance at this conference to talk about this very important topic, which truly matters if we are talking about creating human-centered data systems. So my name is Gülşen, and I am the session host, and we will be together working on an action plan regarding data literacy for the next one and a half hour. So by profession, I'm a data literacy consultant. By training, I'm a social worker. So I really approach data literacy from a humanistic perspective with an intersectionality lens on it. And I really care about data literacy mainly because it is one of the very few ways to empower individuals in the age of data. And if you want to make informed decisions and create a society where data benefits everyone, data literacy is definitely a way to go. So I am not a technical person, but I'm really excited to be in this conference and talking about data and bringing the humanistic perspective to it. So now I will, my colleagues will introduce themselves and then we will get started.
Okay, also welcome from my side. My name is Claudia. I'm working for the ISATO since July 2020. After I obtained my doctorate in chemistry, so I came from a completely different direction. And my major part, the major part of my job is supporting the SSI community engagements on behalf of ISATOs. And in my opinion, there is an overall lack of awareness of the pitfalls of digitalization. And I am highly motivated to contribute towards building a more secure and self-determined digital world. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Very pleased to be here also. Very glad to share this session with all my colleagues. My name is Benoit, and I'm an associate professor at EM Lyon Business School in France. And I'm personally very interested about, I'm teaching data literacy in a different point of views, but I'm very interested today about also how to share data, what is behind the data governance, and how we can also involve everyone and every kind of profile inside that data-driven world we are living in. So this is what we're trying to do and why what we're trying to push here today.
Hello, also from Austria. I'm Christoph from Own Your Data. I'm more or less also a little bit active in the My Data community, mainly in the My Data operators community. In Own Your Data, we also do we've created a personal data store, create data mobility solutions. But since 1.5 years, I also publish the weekly digest. This is actually my approach to learn a little bit more what is going on in the human-centric personal data management world. And this is also what I bring to this session, and really interested to hear your feedback and also to learn something new with you in this 1.5 hours. And handing over to Andre.
Hello, my name is Andre. I'm also with ISATO AG. I'm one of the board members of the company. We are also proud sponsors of My Data conference. So I'm happy that we are able to facilitate this virtual conference format as well here. My particular focus is on how IT skills are in context to data literacy. So I have the thesis that IT literacy is to some extent required to be able to cope with data and be data literate. And this is something I would like to bring to this session. And yeah, my company is involved in information security matters, so we are quite close to IT matters. So that's the reason I'm bringing this aspect into this slot here. Back to Gülşen.
Well, so as you can see, we have amazing people on this session, and we hope you will get an amazing experience by participating by joining us for this session. So before we get started with the kind of creative part of the session, we wanted to introduce you to the topic a bit briefly But before we directly give you the definition of data, maybe it's important that we first understand what is the issue. So the thing is, we are living in a highly dynamic era where dramatic shifts are happening almost every day. And then these changes are happening because data is now the driver of the change and the source of power. And this also happens mainly because there's an abundance of data and the amount of data is increasing, which can be good, which can benefit the society. It can bring innovation. It can help us with sustainability, development, but also it brings many threats, such as especially around personal information and exclusion of some certain groups of society. And then one other big issue that we see is technical terms. This technical aspect of data creates these buzzwords, which then brings barriers and make non-technical or non-data people really distant to data, and they hesitate to get involved in the area and think about the problems and the possible solutions. So as we said, change is happening so fast, and it is really hard to catch up and evaluate critically the opportunities and threats data brings. And then this then causes this unrealistic expectations from technology and data. So it's either this really glorified kind of saver role of data, that it will just solve everything magically, or the opposite is a doom scenario. Data will create this harm to society, or everything will be so bad, or robots will take our jobs, or all that. So we need to build this realistic perspective or realistic understanding around data. And then, so this uncertainty and lack of understanding brings some main questions. How do we adapt the system and processes when change is happening so fast, and when we are required to constantly learn new skills and improve our knowledge in certain areas? And then one of the main reasons this uncertainty is happening is because there's lack of communication, lack of clear communication with data and while we're communicating around data. And then, of course, this is the major problem we see is nobody exactly knows what can be done or what needs to be done precisely. This is not also communicated clearly, or there are some steps, but when it comes to taking actions on these steps, it is rather unclear. So as we see, we set up the scene and we see these issues, and then all these issues makes the case for data literacy and why it's important and why we need it so badly. So new era brings new systems which require new skills and constant upskilling, constant learning, but at the same time, the human elements, the things that makes us human become more important as technology surpasses human capacity and human competences. And secondly, at all levels, from personal to professional, from individual to societal, we have to understand and critically think what is happening around us, how data is shaping the systems, how it is affecting our individual lives, but also the way our society is being structured. And then once we understand how this change is happening, we can only then make informed decisions. And then lastly, the need for data literacy is there because it empowers us to consider more inclusive and equitable ways to work with data so that we can truly talk about human-centric data ecosystems and creating a better society for everyone and not just a few. So we set the scene, understood the issues, understand data literacy is important and why it's important, but what is exactly data literacy? So it is a rather interesting journey because the term first was coined in 1998 and it was only defined as reading data. And the scholars who defined the term saw this need to create this concept of data literacy because they saw that internet was bringing vast amount of materials, but in a unfamiliar formats, which was hard for individuals to make sense of. And now coming to today, the scope of data literacy has expanded, and the definition is now, well, this is one of the many definitions, but I find this one quite comprehensive, is the ability to collect, manage, evaluate, and apply data in critical manner. Or shortly, as defined by UK House of Lords, data literacy is now just a life skill that we have to survive in the age of data. So when we are talking about data literacy skills, we can then mention two main clusters. But before we dive into them, I just want to clarify data literacy. We cannot really clearly classify all the skills under one exact category, but data literacy is a concept require the harmonization of these skills, and this is where this is why the light bulb stands in the intersection of these two clusters. So the first cluster is hard skills. These are known as technical skills, and such as software knowledge, methods around cleaning data, working with data, collecting data. And then the second cluster is soft skills. These are known as human skills, and these are mostly learned through non-formal environments and through lived experiences. So these are skills that really makes us human, such as critical thinking, communicating, decision-making, and leadership. And now I will pass on to Andre, and he will dive into these skills a bit more.
Thank you, Gülşen. So the next slide is a little bit more technical and showing us the model of how we interpret data literacy based on what Gülşen has just outlined for us. So it's still differentiated in these hard skills and soft skills. And we will start from the soft skills side. So obviously, what you need to have from a general perspective is kind of a common sense of interpreting and handling data. So you have to understand how data works, how systems and enterprises work. You have to apply critical thinking, which sounds natural, but it's often not applied properly. You have to actively listen to people. You have to build relationships, and you have to learn how to communicate with data. So this is all like soft skills, like a content competence, we call it. And the common pitfall here is that you use data to confirm what you already believe, and you risk to being naive about the data. So this is the soft skills side. Now coming to the hard skills side a bit, and we'll refrain from the technical aspects for a moment and just look at the method skills. So actually, to work with data, you have to understand how you elaborate on data and you analyze data. So you have to understand principles of mathematics. You have to know about statistics because you have to do analysis on the data. You have to know how to extract data. You have to know about data sciences, and you have to know how to transform and standardize data. And all these skills are more hard skills because they are methods that you can apply. And it's the most common pitfall here is that you expect the data is making the decision for you. So you actually have to work with the data to come to the right conclusions. This all in the end boils down to a data-informed decision-making. And now, as you've heard my first intro, I'm of the opinion that you have to have a basic understanding of technical skills as well, and technical aspects. And technical not in the sense of applying mathematics, but know about the technology and how it underpins the management and handling of data. So my idea is that it would be interesting that at least everybody who is in the space of data handling and wants to be data literate has a basic understanding of IT. And you don't have to be proficient in all the areas like operating systems, memory, storage processes, and so on. But it helps you to be better in your analytics with data. And the most common pitfall here is that you ignore these basic IT principles because the nerds just scared you off. And I think this is the biggest mistake that you can have, that you are scared because the nerds and the tech guys just have made it too complicated. And to outline this a little bit more, why this is not something to be scared of, and find on the next slide, is that if you want to be coping in the area of hyper-digitalization, you have in many different industries like banking, automotive, and so on, different terms for technical aspects. So you have robo-advisors, you have robotics, you have industrial IoT, you have electronic health card and e-government and all this stuff. And in the end, it still is only electronic data processing. It's just differently called in many areas, and it's just made a certain science in these areas. And in the end, it's still electronic data processing. And the same principles apply since 40, 50, 60 years. And I think it is worthwhile to have at least a basic understanding to be data literate and proficient in these aspects. All right. So we are moving on now to get you involved.
So that you understand that here, what we're offering is really to have this approach to data literacy, but with getting into in mind how to create actionable or action plans to reach this. And what we offer you is to do it through 4 different sessions. And the first one, hosted by Gülşen. Oh, you are mute, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So in breakout room where I will be facilitating the discussion, we will look at the literacy. We will zooming into the literacy in data literacy, and then we will explore different ways how to highlight or bring the human elements forefront when we're talking about data literacy.
Thank you. And the second breakout room, the objective here is to address and discuss about the roles of the organizations, okay, regarding the data literacy. Though that means the idea is to explore some best practices and also trying to set up what we're expecting and how we can improve on the way of doing those. And of course, here we're going to talk about companies, but also public administration and what their roles into that.
Okay, in my breakout room, how to communicate personal data news, I want to talk a little bit and reflect on the weekly digests that I created for the last 1.5 years. Tell a little bit what was my thinking, the reasoning behind what I did, but also actually want to discuss how can we develop it further. What would be interesting? What are possible paths that we take on further? Also, if you want to contribute, if you have other things, some ideas that we maybe can develop it together, and I'm looking forward to some crazy new ideas. And over to you, Andre.
Yeah, and the fourth breakout session is about how IT knowledge complements data literacy, and it just focuses on the aspects of how having a basic understanding of IT helps you to work with data more. And obviously, I'm also very much interested in hearing your view if you need IT skills or if that's helpful. And then actually, every one of us in the breakout sessions would like to come with you to concrete next steps and actionable steps going forward. And we rejoin then after the breakouts.
Excellent, thank you. So you understood here, the idea is really to invite you as participant to contribute to that during the next 45 minutes to choose the breakout room that you want to join. And you will follow that your guide into that breakout rooms and into that session, into those 45 minutes, with the idea of creating, or at least trying to think about what could be the different action plans that we can put in place and set up, okay, for the different topic. So here the idea is really to join one breakout room for the next 45 minutes. And after that, we are going back, everyone back here and in the main stage, just to spend the 20 last minutes wrapping up, discussing, but also presenting what we were discussing inside the different breakout sessions, and also trying to create really like an action plans of the short, middle, and long term. And with the idea, of course, trying at least to create like 3 to 5 concrete steps for the final action plan. So what we all invite you and offer you is that you will find on the Zoom session, you will find like breakout rooms back here on the bar that you have. And you can choose, you have the name of the different breakout rooms, and you can choose the one that you want to join. And I invite you to join this breakout room so we will be able to discuss this. And we see each other back in 45 minutes. So welcome back, everyone. I hope that your different session was great, amazing, and had a lot of contribution from everyone. And so the idea here was really to think about how to create like an action plan from different point of view and from different contribution, of course, different topics. So the idea here is really to use also the mirror board. And this is what we're going to share with you. And I will invite, and I'm going to, where it is, sorry, it's not here. Oh, okay, another, yep. Could you see it? Yep. So what I will hope for you is that taking topic by topic and session by session and trying to summarize in 2-3 minutes what you were discussing. And in order to wrapping up all the elements and all the contribution and trying to create like a kind of global action plan for different stuff as individuals and organization with short, middle, and long terms. Okay, Gülşen session, we want to start there just to summarize the different contribution.
We had 3 people. Susanna had to leave early, but I believe Vladimir is still with us. So if you want to go, Vladimir, please feel free.
Oh, no, please. Can you be the speaker? My English is not so good.
Okay, all right, no problem. Well,
do you want to start
Cordula,
at the beginning?
You can also feel free to
Maybe
jump
Cordula
in.
is, yeah, very good, I think.
But so I can start. So we started a discussion around how the importance of literacy were somehow undermined by the technical discussions around data. And there was this gatekeeping around data literacy by the technical industry. And then how data was perceived as a source of truth, and how it was controlled by some certain organizations or authorities, and not individual-centric conversations were happening around data literacy. So you can see, you can kind of see the correlation between all these stickies, but one thing that several things kind of emerge as main problematic areas was that one, the digital divide, which then caused disengagement around topics around data literacy, or disinterest in data literacy or being a part of the conversation because they don't understand what's going on. So that was kind of this ominous cycle going on. So that was one of the biggest challenges. And then the other one was this privacy paradox. Because people don't understand what's going on, they were also not able to make informed decisions, which then brought privacy paradox. And then we had the discussion around the role of the government in these challenges. And then the dilemma kind of came up: should we trust the governments, or how about governments who also abuse the power by using data? So there was also these 2 different aspects. That's also one of the challenges we had. And again, these buzzwords around surrounding discussion, and not really human-centric discussions happening, but it's always majorly about technical aspects, and companies' interests are centered in these discussions.
Okay, excellent. So
So we had, there were some actions that we saw the need. And so the most urgent thing that came up was lifelong learning and how important it is. Well, learning in general, but when we say learning, not only school kids, but adults and also especially marginalized groups in society, because we know when people are marginalized offline, they are very likely to be marginalized online as well. So this again bringing this exclusion cycle. And then Vladimir had this amazing idea and he explained his work, but he's working with libraries and how it can help us actually promote data literacy more in a human-friendly way. And of course, which then would bring improvement of navigation, digital navigational skills. So the idea was that not everybody has to know what's happening all the time, but just knowledgeable enough to navigate themselves as if you just do in a library. You don't have to read all the books, but if you know where to go, what to look for, then it's good enough. And so in the long term, of course, trust, communication, and data activism came up. And these are, of course, very big topics and could be like a session of each. But these were basically the things we thought needed to be included in the action plan.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Great. So I will go through the second session that I was hosting. So here it was more about addressing the roles of the different organizations, and you will see that somehow we converge to some common elements. But we were starting there just to think about what were the some practices and best practices that we were facing in our environment regarding companies, but also regarding public authorities or public administration and etc. And we were so few elements were just that emerged from our discussion is that regarding the business side, also the company side, is that it's one of contribution from Delphine here during the session that she realized that in her job that with a continuously support regarding and a continuously open discussion between the customer's business side and also the IT support team, that they really in fact getting closer and closer to the customer needs, but they're also participating and contributing for the customers to better understand how things going and how they can use the data better, but also how and what kind of data they were collected and etc. etc. And also some contribution about some example how involving schools and students in some use case to pushing them to contribute and imagine and invent different scenarios so they're facing data the sooner to help and to be more and more familiar there to data in their daily life. Okay, and okay, of course you have some clubs and activities for kids and to start them to learn and understand also. And some also contribution about that we have more and more like foundation or philanthropical offers from companies that offer also and provide fundings to help companies or to help nonprofit organizations to develop the different access to data literacy understanding. And also an example about, yes, of course, organization like Open Knowledge Foundation that helps to provide elements and content to individuals and also organization like. Okay, so we went during all that, we were discussing about, okay, how to put, it's a matter inside the organization, how to push the change management, also about understanding, about picking up the elements that exist today and how to push people just to better understand or better empower themselves just to understand what is behind data and how you can use it. Okay, it's about collaborators inside the organization, but it's also about the individuals themselves. Okay, but the one thing that we're facing, in fact, I'm enlarging there, I'm zooming in, that we were facing, and the question about our discussion where during the action is how to involve all the different kind of profiles we have, because for now, it's only people who are interested about the topic who get there. Okay, and of course you cannot like push someone and put like mandatory thing just to, okay, you have to educate yourself about this. Okay, it's only people that getting in. The example of providing and opening like an open course like they did in Finland about the Finnish course about AI. You have the link here about how to give access through internet and through the website and to something that it's open to everyone. But of course, still the same issue about, okay, how to involve different kind of people not interested into data literacy. And here the cities could have a role also because they are more focusing and want to support also how to involve and how to be the more inclusive as possible. So it's through maybe cities, but it's also what we thought it's also important to involve really the multiple stakeholders about public authorities, company, nonprofit organization, and maybe for companies creating some demonstration simulation to show how solution or service work and that many people use it in their daily life. So they are interested about knowing maybe or trying to understand how it works. Okay, and what we also discuss a lot is you have the link here. It's how to, and it would be also, it could be useful to have and to think about like a data literacy levels and to face in front of the different levels what could be and what could be the power to be active for yourself, you know, and what kind of element you could have access regarding your level. So related here to the framework of data skills provided by the Open Data Initiative and this one, ODI Institute, Open Data Institute, sorry, ODI. There you go. Andre?
Yeah. So we obviously looked at the scary IT side of things. We clearly identified quite quickly that most people are scared of data and of IT because it's made too complex, and people think of it in a complexity that's not warranted. So data is quite simple. It's numbers, characters, switches, and dates. And everything on top is context, and context is given just for people to understand it better, not for the computer, but for people. And the identification of the core problem that computers have to be demystified has basically, well, that we came to this conclusion quite quickly. And coding also scares people because they don't know what that means and how that works. And people are not given the simplicity of it, that it's just translating a plain language into computer code that the computer can understand. So people are thinking of it as something scary and complex. So where do we want to be? And if we move on to the next section, we want to basically close that gap and take the scariness away. And in general, think that data literacy and IT literacy go together and are worthwhile to pursue as an education perspective. And the times have never been better because programming languages have become very, very easy in the days today. So learning to code and learning to interact with data in programming languages is easier than ever. And I think we need to leverage that fact and basically use this aspect to get people in touch with computers. And Paul said something that I think is very good. He said best practice in coding is always to document as much as you code, because then you learn the most. And I think this is a paradigm that we want to factor into the next steps. And actually, the next steps are quite tangible. We think that it's worthwhile to have a separation of the different IT literacy target groups and age groups, and identify basic teaching formats and methods, how to actually teach courses or run courses, and write up one of the first teaching formats as a starting point, so that we see if that resonates with the community and can be in fact practically applied, and explain IT with simple daily analogies in that regard, and obviously also transport the message of that semantics are there for people to understand it, and they are just overlays in the computer, and facilitate that in the courses. And in the medium term, then we can collect these teaching formats and pile up maybe a whole curriculum, which we then in the very long term can run in the My Data Academy as IT literacy courses. So that's our ideas.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you, Andre. Thank you for all the contributors. Christoph?
Okay, I think looking at the time, we can make it quite quick.
Yeah.
Maybe go to the last box already. So we talked a little bit about the My Data Weekly Digest, and there were a few at least for me, very interesting insights that people mentioned. So one was that there's actually quite complex, also the news, and that if you are a beginner in exchanging this data, there should be different levels. I think you have heard it also before already, and somehow tagging the different stories is a beginner, intermediary, or advanced level. And that when you say you approach the site first, that you just get the beginner's information kind of, and this is also the second box below, create a path into introducing data news. So how can we make it really easy for people to approach this very complex topic, and there's really fear of, oh, this is just something where I cannot get any understanding, so I'm just fearing away, and how can you make it easier? So a few ideas came up, and actually for me the biggest learning was this proposal to say this is just something very boring, it's just again text or so. Wouldn't it be nice to have weekly interviews with people from the My Data community to say, okay, let's talk what happened last week in My Data? And I think this is a really nice idea, and I really would like to jump into this, and I could imagine that something like this will be soon available, but we can discuss this, of course, because this is one of the next slides, I think. If there shouldn't be a data literacy thematic group, and maybe this could be a very nice outcome of it.
Excellent, thanks a lot. Very cool. Great.
All right.
Yep, I think this is here.
Yeah,
so
the next one.
Yeah.
In general, this was one of our key ideas, that we can continue all our work here and use this session basically as the kickoff for a My Data thematic group around data literacy. And we have already created a channel in the My Data Slack. You can access it with a link on the page here, or just join if you're already in the Slack. There's the channel there, and we would like to I think we will call for a formal thematic group then, and if we think that's worthwhile, I definitely think it's worthwhile. And if you want to be in touch with us individually, on the next slide is our contact points.
What happened?
Yeah, if you click on it, I made it a link. So
yeah, that's why.
that was a tricky thing. And on the next slide, you see our names and contact points, and obviously we're all in the program table, and looking forward to collaborate with you on these topics. And if we are closing down here, we said we want to come in an informal mode into the ESATUS virtual booth, where we can do a little bit of a debrief and continue discussion if you like. So if we are moving over when we have closed down to the virtual booth. And thank you everyone for making this work and happen. I think it was a very cool session, and I would very much like to continue the activities around data literacy in the thematic group.
Yeah, thanks a lot for all your contribution, and I really think, and I really hope this is only your start, just that you to go further to all this work and all what we did here today. Thanks a lot. Thanks to everyone.
I would like to thank Gülşen, because she was the actual starting point for all of this. Also, I think a round of applause to her. And of course, all the participants that we have this session. And it was really a lot of fun to prepare it and also to work together with you and have this session. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
for
you,
you guys.
everyone. It was amazing.
Thanks a lot. Great.
See you around.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you in a second.
So see you at the booth, and
Yes.
And see you on
hope to-
Smack on the data literacy channel.
Exactly. Exactly.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Enjoy.